Welcome to Affordable Tutor. You know, we're all about making education simple and exciting for everyone.
Absolutely.
And today we're going to be diving deep into something that can be pretty complex, the
Okay.
world of cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
Our listeners have shared some recent analysis with us,
Okay.
a cryptocurrency market analysis and trends specifically as of March 29th, 2025.
Right.
So our mission today is to really unpack all these key developments, look at the regulatory shifts that are happening and try to get a clearer picture of potential future movements in crypto.
Yeah, I think this report is really interesting.
Okay.
It offers a really fascinating look at a market that seems to be at crossroads right now, with a lot of different forces acting upon it.
Yeah, so let's just jump right in. The report highlights a couple of significant recent events that I definitely want to get your take on,
Right.
notably a Trump crypto summit,
Okay.
and then also the formation of something called the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve.
Interesting.
What stood out to you about these events?
Well, I think what's really fascinating is this direct engagement from a high level of government,
Yeah.
The Trump administration convening a summit that's focused on cryptocurrency and then formalizing an executive order to study Bitcoin's legitimacy.
Mm-hmm.
That signals a really significant shift in how the U.S. government is viewing digital assets.
Yeah.
It's not just on the periphery anymore.
Right. It's like moving beyond just acknowledging its existence and into
Yeah,
trying to understand its strategic importance.
exactly.
And that leads to this whole strategic Bitcoin reserve thing.
Okay.
The report says it's going to be mainly made up of cryptocurrencies that have been forfeited to the government.
Okay, so like seized assets and things.
Yeah, exactly. So what's the thinking behind holding on to all these assets
Yeah.
rather than just selling them off right away?
Well, it seems like this is a move towards the government becoming a direct participant in the cryptocurrency market.
Interesting.
Yeah, essentially having the capacity to buy and sell.
Hmm.
So it's really a notable evolution
Yeah.
from a purely regulatory role to one of direct market involvement.
Okay, so that's a really interesting development.
Yeah.
And I think this is where it gets even more interesting.
Okay.
The report mentions this initial surge of excitement in the market,
Okay.
following all these announcements.
Makes sense.
But then it quickly fizzled out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, as the report puts it, somewhat anticlimactic.
Wow.
Why do you think that initial enthusiasm couldn't be sustained?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
And I think it raises the question of what the market was expecting versus what actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps the specifics of the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve.
Okay.
Maybe the fact that it's based on forfeited assets,
Yeah, sure.
didn't have the immediate impact that some people were hoping for.
Yeah.
Were the quantities involved relatively small?
Hmm.
Were the timelines for implementation unclear?
Right.
Those are some of the questions that come up.
Yeah, and the report does mention that some experts thought a truly successful summit could have pushed Bitcoin, towards that $90,000 mark,
Wow.
with other major coins kind of following suit.
Right.
The fact that didn't happen, I think, suggests that the market might be looking for more concrete action
Yeah.
or maybe a clearer strategy from the government beyond just holding on to these seized assets.
Yeah, perhaps more proactive investment or a clearer endorsement from the government
Exactly.
could have really made a difference.
Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit.
Right.
The report also spends quite a bit of time on the regulatory landscape,
Okay.
specifically the roles of the CFTC and the SEC.
Right.
So for our listener who's trying to make sense of, who regulates what in this crazy crypto world,
Yeah.
what are some of the key distinctions to keep in mind?
Well, I think if we connect this back to the market's reaction to the summit,
Uh-huh.
it really underscores how sensitive the crypto space is to any perceived regulatory shifts.
Okay.
So understanding the Commodity Futures Trading Commission,
Right.
or CFTC,
The CFTC?
and the Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC, is absolutely crucial.
Gotcha.
The CFTC primarily oversees commodities, and that includes many cryptocurrencies.
Okay.
Their main focus is on preventing fraud and manipulation in those markets.
Okay, so they're looking at the trading aspect of it.
Yeah,
And trying to ensure a level playing field for everyone.
exactly.
Okay.
Now, the SEC, on the other hand, regulates securities,
Right.
and they've been quite active in the crypto space,
Mm-hmm.
taking enforcement actions against initial coin offerings or ICOs
Yeah.
and other digital asset activities that they believe constitute unregistered securities offerings.
So the big question for any new cryptocurrency project seems to be
Yeah.
whether or not the SEC considers it a security.
Right.
And that can create a lot of uncertainty.
Absolutely. And the report points out that any regulatory action from either the CFTC or the SEC often leads to increased market volatility.
Makes sense.
Even the hint of stricter regulations or enforcement can make investors nervous. While perceived positive regulatory developments can boost confidence.
Yeah, it sounds like there's also some overlap in their jurisdictions, too,
Yeah, definitely.
which can't make things any easier for the industry.
No, not at all.
So,
The report notes that there are ongoing discussions about clarifying the lines between the CFTC and the SEC's authority,
okay.
suggesting a potential move towards more cooperation to streamline the regulatory process.
Okay.
So that kind of clarity would likely be very welcome in the crypto space.
Absolutely. Now, the report also mentions a crypto task force
Yeah.
that was formed earlier this year in 2025.
Right.
What's the aim of this task force?
So the crypto task force was established in January of 2025,
Okay.
and it's specifically focused on enhancing the oversight and regulation of the entire cryptocurrency landscape.
Okay.
Interestingly, the report highlights a perception that the Trump administration is more favorable towards stablecoins
Mm-hmm.
and cryptocurrencies in general.
Okay.
And this could lead to a potential decrease in regulatory enforcement in certain areas.
Interesting. So it's a bit of a mixed bag on the regulatory front.
Yeah,
Increased scrutiny in some areas, but potentially a lighter touch in others,
exactly.
particularly regarding stablecoins.
It seems that way.
Okay, now let's kind of zoom out a little bit and look at some of the broader market trends that are influencing cryptocurrency in 2025.
All right.
What are some of the key factors that are highlighted in the report?
Well, there are several interconnected factors that are really shaping the landscape.
Okay.
The report points to the impact of regulatory crackdowns in some parts of the world,
Uh-huh.
which are dampening demand for crypto,
Yeah.
while friendlier regulations elsewhere are having the opposite effect.
It's like different countries are running different experiments with crypto regulation.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're seeing the market respond accordingly.
Right.
So what other forces are at play here?
Well, economic instability and inflation are significant drivers.
Okay.
As traditional currencies face devaluation, the argument for cryptocurrencies as a hedge becomes more compelling for some investors.
Right. So that narrative of Bitcoin as digital gold
Exactly.
kind of starts to gain traction
Yeah, you see that a lot.
in these times, for sure.
Yeah.
A safe haven asset in an uncertain economic climate.
For sure.
Now, the report also touches on environmental concerns.
Yes.
How are those influencing the market?
Well, environmental concerns, particularly the energy consumption associated with some cryptocurrency mining operations, are definitely a factor affecting demand.
Okay.
And this has led to increased interest and investment in more energy-efficient blockchain technologies and cryptocurrencies.
So it's not just about the potential returns anymore.
No.
Sustainability is becoming a bigger and bigger consideration.
Absolutely.
For investors and for the industry as a whole.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, what about competition from traditional financial institutions?
That's another key element.
Okay.
Traditional financial products are evolving, and some are starting to offer similar benefits to cryptocurrencies,
Right.
often with the perceived security of established regulations and a longer track record.
Right.
This puts pressure on the crypto market to continue to innovate and demonstrate its unique value proposition.
Absolutely. So let's talk Bitcoin.
Right.
The report includes some pretty optimistic predictions for where the price of Bitcoin could be by the end of the year.
It does.
What?
What's your take?
Well, some projections suggest that Bitcoin could potentially reach $200,000
Why?
or even $250,000 by the end of 2025.
Okay.
These optimistic forecasts often hinge on factors like increased adoption by institutions and a broader acceptance of cryptocurrencies as legitimate assets.
Those are some ambitious targets.
They are.
But the report also mentions some more immediate factors like the CPI and inflation data.
Right.
How do these economic indicators affect Bitcoin's price in the shorter term?
Well, the latest CPI report showing a 2.8% increase in inflation
Okay.
definitely has a near-term impact on Bitcoin's price. Makes sense.
While higher inflation can sometimes be seen as supportive of Bitcoin's inflation hedge narrative, it can also lead to concerns about broader economic policies that might negatively affect riskier assets, like cryptocurrencies.
Right.
It's a complex relationship.
It's like a push and pull.
Yeah, exactly.
So looking beyond price targets for individual coins,
Okay.
what are the broader projections for the growth of the overall cryptocurrency market?
Well, the report anticipates significant growth
Okay.
in the entire cryptocurrency ecosystem,
Oh,
projecting a market value reaching a staggering $5 trillion
wow.
by the year 2030.
Okay.
This long-term outlook really underscores the expectation that digital assets will continue to become a more significant part of the global financial landscape,
Yeah.
driven by ongoing technological advancements and wider adoption across various sectors.
$5 trillion by 2030, that's massive.
It is a huge number.
And the report also hints at this potential $36 trillion market shift
Right.
that's anticipated in April.
Yes.
That sounds like it could bring about some serious volatility.
Indeed, the report suggests that this expected $36 trillion market shift in April could lead to significant price swings for both Bitcoin and the broader cryptocurrency market.
Okay.
It's definitely something that market participants will be watching very closely in the coming weeks.
So it sounds like we should brace ourselves for some potential volatility in the near future.
Probably a good idea.
Okay, this brings us to the section on cryptocurrency market risk and investor sentiment.
All right.
How are investors generally approaching this potentially turbulent environment?
Well, the report highlights an interesting characteristic of many cryptocurrency investors.
Okay.
They tend to have an opportunistic mindset.
Okay.
Rather than viewing the high volatility as purely a risk to be avoided, they often see it as an opportunity to potentially achieve significant gains.
Interesting.
And this perspective can actually contribute to the volatility we observe.
So the perception of volatility as an opportunity
Yeah.
can, in a way, fuel further price swings
Exactly.
as people try to capitalize on those movements.
Right.
Okay. And the report also stresses the strong link between investor sentiment and market risk.
Absolutely.
You know, positive sentiment can drive those rapid price increases,
Yeah.
while negative sentiment can trigger those sharp sell-offs.
For sure.
It's a market that's heavily influenced by those prevailing attitudes and expectations.
Absolutely.
And what about those common human tendencies?
Yeah.
You know, those behavioral biases like following the crowd or the fear of missing out.
Right.
Did those play a role in how people are investing in crypto?
Absolutely. Behavioral biases such as herding, which is the tendency to follow what others are doing,
Right.
overconfidence in one's own abilities,
Yeah.
and the fear of missing out, or FOMO,
Yep.
can have a substantial impact on investment decisions in the cryptocurrency space.
Yeah.
These emotional factors can often override more rational fundamental analysis.
It makes perfect sense. You see a coin suddenly gaining momentum, and that urge to jump in can be very, very strong.
Yeah, you really want to get in on that action.
Even if you haven't fully researched, you know what's actually behind it.
Exactly.
The report also touches on the demographics of cryptocurrency investors.
Right.
What does it have to say about that?
It notes that cryptocurrency investors tend to be highly engaged and generally younger compared to investors in traditional markets.
Okay.
And this demographic difference can influence market dynamics,
Yeah.
potentially contributing to a higher risk appetite
Okay.
and different information consumption patterns.
Now, how do those big market downturns, those crashes,
Yeah.
affect investor sentiment?
Well, the report suggests that the impact of market crashes on investor sentiment varies,
Okay.
depending on an individual's experience level
Uh-huh.
and their investment time horizon.
Okay.
Newer investors might be more prone to panic selling,
Right.
while more experienced investors with a longer-term view might see those dips as potential buying opportunities.
Right. So it really highlights the importance of,
Yeah.
having that long-term perspective,
Absolutely.
especially in such a volatile market.
For sure.
The report also mentions the role of advisory sources and social media,
Right.
which feels like a particularly influential factor in the crypto world.
It certainly is.
What are your thoughts?
Well, advisory sources and social media platforms play a significant role in shaping investment behaviors and can often act as catalysts for rapid market movements,
Right.
both upward and downward.
Yeah.
Information, and sometimes misinformation,
Yeah.
can spread very quickly in the digital age.
For sure. And finally, on this topic of investor behavior,
Okay.
the report discusses how investors are positioning their portfolios in anticipation of a potential bull run
Yes.
in the second quarter of 2025.
That's right.
Sounds like a lot of people are expecting an upward trend.
It does seem that way.
What do you think?
Well, many investors are strategically adjusting their holdings in preparation for a possible upward surge in the market in Q2 of 2025.
Okay.
And this very positioning can in itself contribute to the upward pressure they anticipate.
Right. Kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move on to looking at some specific cryptocurrencies.
Right.
Bitcoin and Ethereum, as the report notes, continue to be the dominant players in the market.
Right.
What's the current analysis on these two market leaders?
Well, what's really interesting is their sustained dominance. Despite the constant emergence of new cryptocurrencies,
Yeah.
Bitcoin is projected to trade within a fairly wide range
Okay.
between $85,500 and $165,000.
Okay.
The potential approval of additional exchange-traded funds, or ETFs,
Right.
which for those unfamiliar are investment vehicles that track the price of an asset like Bitcoin and allow more traditional investors to gain exposure,
Right.
and the increasing integration of artificial intelligence within the crypto space are seen as potential catalysts that could push Bitcoin towards the higher end of that range,
Okay.
possibly even reaching $185,000.
So the key here is that these ETFs could make Bitcoin more accessible to a wider range of investors.
Exactly.
And the incorporation of AI could lead to new and innovative applications.
That's right. It's all about expanding the reach and the utility of Bitcoin.
What about Ethereum?
Ethereum maintains a strong position, particularly in the stablecoin market,
Okay.
where it sees substantial monthly transaction volume,
Okay.
while Bitcoin has experienced more pronounced price volatility recently.
All right.
Ethereum is also projected to move towards a value of around $90,000,
Okay.
indicating a strong level of underlying support and continued utility,
Yeah.
especially within the decentralized finance or DeFi ecosystem.
So despite the fluctuations,
Yeah.
the overall outlook for both Bitcoin and Ethereum
Uh-huh.
remains quite robust, according to this analysis.
That's what it seems like.
Now, the report also shines a spotlight on some emerging altcoins. Okay. With Quebetics being specifically mentioned,
Right.
what makes Quebetics noteworthy?
Well, Quebetics is presented as a particularly promising contender in the altcoin space.
Okay.
It's being highlighted for its potential for high returns on investment, coupled with its innovative underlying technology.
Okay.
The report projects a very substantial potential ROI of 12,590%,
Wow.
which is, of course, a very attractive prospect for investors seeking high-growth opportunities.
That's a huge potential return.
It is.
But it's important to remember, though,
Yeah.
that with such high potential rewards often comes a higher level of risk.
Absolutely.
Listeners should always do their own thorough research before investing in anything.
Couldn't agree more.
The report also touches on XRP and other notable cryptocurrencies.
Okay.
What's the latest on those?
XRP is definitely generating significant attention, with anticipated trends for April 2025 suggesting potential price movements
Okay.
influenced by the broader market conditions, and possibly any developments in his ongoing regulatory situation.
Right.
The report also notes that large cryptocurrency holders, often referred to as whales,
Whales.
are showing increased interest in specific altcoins for April 2025.
Interesting.
This kind of activity from large investors
Yeah.
can sometimes be an indicator of potential market shifts.
Okay.
Beyond XRP, the report highlights Binance Coin, or BNB,
B.
and Solana, or SOL,
SOL.
as other notable cryptocurrencies that demonstrated interesting price movements in March 2025,
Okay.
suggesting they remain key players to keep an eye on in the altcoin market.
So a mix of established altcoins and some potentially high-growth newcomers in that space.
Exactly, a dynamic mix.
Just to recap, the report emphasizes that while volatility remains a key characteristic of the market,
Yeah.
the dominance of Bitcoin and Ethereum does provide a degree of stability.
Right, we continue to see those significant price swings, particularly with Bitcoin. However, the consistent market capitalization and trading volume of Bitcoin and Ethereum do provide a foundational level of stability
Yeah.
to the overall cryptocurrency market.
Okay.
At the same time, new projects like Quebetics introduce the potential for high returns, but also increased market activity and potentially increased risk.
Right. So it's a balance.
Yeah, for sure.
And overall, the prevailing sentiment seems to be leaning towards a bullish or upward trending market.
Yes, the report suggests an overall bullish sentiment in the cryptocurrency market,
Okay.
supported by increasing adoption by institutions,
Uh-huh.
clearer regulatory frameworks in some jurisdictions,
Right.
and ongoing advancements in the underlying technology,
Okay.
including the integration of AI and the approval of ETFs, as we discussed earlier.
So a lot of positive factors.
Definitely.
Okay, let's wrap up by looking at the main conclusions from the report.
Okay.
It really underscores the significant impact of regulatory actions,
Yeah.
economic trends,
Mm-hmm.
and how investors are behaving on the cryptocurrency market.
That's right. The Trump administration's initiative to establish a strategic Bitcoin reserve,
Uh-huh.
along with the ongoing regulatory scrutiny from bodies like the CFTC and the SEC,
Yeah.
are identified as major factors shaping the current market dynamics.
And while Bitcoin and Ethereum remain the leading cryptocurrencies,
Right.
there's a lot of interesting potential in some of these newer projects.
Precisely, while Bitcoin and Ethereum maintain their dominant positions,
Uh-huh.
emerging projects like Quebetics highlight the ongoing innovation and potential for significant returns within the broader cryptocurrency ecosystem.
The establishment of the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve
Yeah,
feels like a really significant moment
it does.
in how governments are viewing and interacting with the world of digital currencies.
Absolutely. The report emphasizes that this move by the U.S. government represents a notable shift in policy
Uh-huh.
and could potentially set a precedent for how other nations approach cryptocurrencies in the future.
So it's not just about the immediate market impact. It could have much broader implications for global policy and adoption.
For sure.
The report concludes with a word of caution for investors.
Yes. It advises investors to remain mindful of the inherent market volatility and to always consider the broader economic context when making investment decisions in this rapidly evolving space.
So important to stay informed.
Absolutely.
And ultimately, the anticipation of a potential bull run in the second quarter of 2025.
Yeah.
The expected $36 trillion market shift in April.
Uh-huh.
And the ever-changing regulatory landscape
Right.
all point to a period that could offer both significant opportunities and potential challenges
It will be interesting to see how it all plays out.
for anyone involved in the cryptocurrency market.
Yeah, it's a fascinating time to be watching this space.
Absolutely. So, taking a step back from our deep dive today,
All right.
you can see that the cryptocurrency market is a truly dynamic environment,
It is.
one that's heavily influenced by actions taken at the highest levels of government,
Yeah.
the relentless pace of technological advancement, and the ever-shifting tides of investor sentiment.
Absolutely.
The coming months, particularly April and the second quarter of 2025, certainly look like they could be pivotal.
They do.
Considering the U.S. government's move to establish a Bitcoin reserve,
Right.
it makes you wonder, how might this decision ultimately shape the perception and rate of adoption of cryptocurrencies by other major global powers in the years to come?
That's a great question to ponder.
It is the world of crypto never stands still.
Never a dull moment.
And we hope this deep dive has provided you with a valuable snapshot of where things stand right now.
Me too.
Stay curious and keep exploring.
Great advice.